What makes an education system truly effective, especially, in a society renowned worldwide for its academic rigor and, well, its competitive drive? That's the puzzle we're piecing together today.
Huh?
We are diving deep into the education system of South Korea, pulling apart the layers based on this stack of sources you've shared.
Yeah, and what a stack it is. We've got material covering everything from its ancient roots right up to the current structure. There are detailed looks at the curriculum and some particularly insightful sections focusing on areas you highlighted, like character development and social emotional learning.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is clear. We want to uncover the foundational elements of how South Korea educates its people, understand the philosophy woven into the curriculum, and really dig into the challenges and the intentional goals around teaching things like character and citizenship alongside those core academic subjects.
Exactly. We'll trace the journey of this system from its deep past to the present day, walk through how it's structured now, get a glimpse into what students actually learn through the national curriculum, and then importantly, spend time exploring those critical efforts to cultivate well-rounded individuals through character education and social-emotional learning.
Okay, let's start at the absolute beginning, or maybe even before. The sources make it clear that education in Korea has roots stretching way back to prehistoric times. But formal education really began to take shape with institutions like Taihak way back in 372 AD during the Goguryeo era.
Hmm.
And right from the start, the curriculum had a strong focus not just on skills, but on ethics. It drew heavily from Confucianism and Buddhism, aiming to cultivate morals and educate the public broadly. It wasn't just about acquiring knowledge, it was about building character, wasn't it?
Right, and that emphasis on character and a broader purpose for education seems to carry through. The sources highlight a significant shift in the 19th century with the introduction of modern schools by missionaries and independence leaders.
Oh, yeah.
There's this powerful theme emerging. Education as a tool for saving the nation, training future leaders at a time of national vulnerability. It links personal development directly to national destiny.
Following liberation in 1945, the system underwent a fundamental transformation, laying the groundwork for a democratic education. We see key policies enacted, like the education law and the establishment of compulsory education.
And this is also when the familiar 6334 single-track system was set up: 6 years primary, 3 middle, 3 high, and typically 4 for university. It's quite remarkable that even during the Korean War, education wasn't halted. It was seen as essential, playing a role in national reconstruction efforts.
And then came a period of absolutely explosive growth, particularly in the 1960s and 70s. This quantitative expansion ran parallel with South Korea's incredible economic development. The sources detail a massive increase in schools, teachers, students.
That's huge numbers.
But, as they point out, this rapid scale-up came with significant side effects. Severely overcrowded classrooms and the beginnings of that intense competition we often associate with the system, especially for college entrance.
Definitely. That push for quantity started shifting towards a focus on quality and normalization in the 1980s. Policies began emphasizing the success of education in a broader sense, aiming explicitly to cultivate well-rounded citizens, not just high achievers.
So a deliberate shift in focus.
Exactly. We see measures introduced like the college graduation quota system, which aim to limit the number of graduates to potentially ease competition for jobs. And a really significant change: the abolition of the main college entrance examination in favor of giving heavier weight to high school achievements.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, this was a clear attempt to reduce the singular focus on that one high-stakes test.
Moving into the 1990s, the vision evolved again, focusing on human education for the future. The emphasis wasn't just on expanding access, but on enhancing quality across secondary and higher education. The goal, explicitly stated in the objectives of the 7th curriculum mentioned in the sources, was producing well-rounded citizens ready for the 21st century, the era of globalization and a knowledge-based society.
So the historical journey shows a constant evolution, always tied to national goals, but also, grappling with the effects of that rapid growth.
At the core of this whole system is the national curriculum. It's overseen by the Ministry of Education. And its role, as the sources explain, is crucial for ensuring equal opportunity and maintaining quality nationwide.
Right. It sets the standards, but it also allows for some flexibility at the school level, recognizing that schools have unique characteristics. It's a dynamic document. Revised periodically, the material notes 7 major revisions to adapt to societal needs, technological changes, and academic shifts.
And this curriculum isn't just a list of subjects. It's explicitly designed to cultivate a specific type of individual, what the sources refer to as an educated person.
Mm.
This vision is ambitious. It includes qualities like seeking individuality, cultivating creativity, exploring a career path, valuing Korean cultural heritage deeply, and contributing to the community as a democratic citizen. It's trying to build a whole person, not just a test taker.
Exactly. And the structure we mentioned earlier, that 6334 system, is how this curriculum is delivered across the various levels. Kindergartens, primary, middle, high schools of different types, special schools, and then on to higher education like universities and junior colleges.
Yeah.
This structure is formalized through acts like the Basic Education Act and the Primary and Secondary Education Act, which the sources trace back to 1998.
Okay. And inside the school, the curriculum is typically organized into core subjects, optional activities, and extracurriculars. The core subjects cover familiar ground: Korean language, social studies, math, science, physical education, arts, foreign language, primarily English, and notably, moral education.
And the textbooks, they're developed to align perfectly with this national curriculum. The sources describe different types, those copyrighted by the ministry, and others authorized but published privately. Interestingly, there's been a move towards allowing multiple textbooks per subject, particularly in primary school, which perhaps hints at a move towards broader perspectives or teaching approaches.
More choice.
Yeah, and English textbooks were a significant addition as English education expanded.
Now, despite that stated vision of the educated person and the efforts to build a comprehensive curriculum, there's an elephant in the room, isn't there? The absolutely undeniable intensity, particularly around the university entrance system.
Oh, absolutely.
While the sources mention alternative pathways, like using high school grades and interviews, it's clear that the final high-stakes exam is still the dominant route for most students aiming for higher education.
And the material highlights something crucial: the immense importance and prestige attached to attending a good, highly ranked university in Korean society. This isn't just about getting a degree, it's deeply tied to social standing and future opportunities. And this intense societal focus fuels the massive private education market known as hagwon.
Yes, the Agwans.
The sources make a key distinction here. Unlike in some places where private tutoring supports underachievers, a huge portion of the hagwon system in South Korea is focused squarely on drilling students, often for hours after their regular school day ends, purely to prepare them for that single university entrance exam.
Wow.
It's a system that exists largely to supplement or perhaps even compensate for the formal system's ability to prepare students for that specific high-stakes hurdle.
And this high-stakes environment, this relentless pressure, appears deeply connected to some significant problems faced by adolescents, problems that the government is actively trying to address. We're talking about alarmingly high rates of stress, depression, suicidal ideation, and also significant issues with school violence and bullying.
Yeah, the statistics are worrying.
The sources cite a really sobering statistic from a 2012 survey. A staggering 77% of responding youth admitted involvement in school bullying as a perpetrator within the past year.
77%.
And 11% reported experiencing violence themselves. That statistic is just jarring.
It absolutely is. And the sources link these severe problems, at least in part, to a perceived lack of social-emotional competencies and the ability to handle difficult situations or interact harmoniously under pressure.
Right.
The data supports this many students who witnessed school violence, for example, reported that they either pretended not to see it or simply didn't know how to react effectively.
They lack the tools, maybe.
Exactly. This points to a gap in the skills needed to navigate complex social dynamics in such a high-pressure setting.
This brings us directly to the government's intentional response to these issues, most notably the 2015 Character Education Promotion Act.
Yes. Its stated purpose, as the material explains, is to cultivate sound and positive character among students, aiming to help them succeed not just academically, but also to become productive citizens.
So this is where social and emotional learning, or SEL, enters the picture. While character education has historical roots in ethics learning in Korea, the approach to SEL has more recently aligned with the widely recognized KSEL definition, focusing on those 5 core competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making.
But what's particularly fascinating, according to the sources, is that while adopting this international framework, Korean SEL includes some distinct elements that reflect the enduring influence of Confucianism.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
Things like decorum and filial piety. So it's this blend of universal SEL concepts with traditional Korean values.
Okay.
The overall goal is described as cultivating the inner self and fostering the qualities necessary for harmonious living. It's often integrated into non-academic subjects, but its scope is expanding, suggesting a real push to make it a more central part of education.
And this push for character and SEL intersects with citizenship education, but with a different origin story.
That's right.
The sources note that while the character education push feels like a more recent government-led initiative, citizenship education has deeper roots. It grew significantly out of the democratic movements of the 1970s and 80s, originating more from civil society, a bottom-up approach focused on democratic participation and rights.
That's a critical distinction. And the sources clarify that there isn't a formal, standalone citizenship education subject in the national curriculum.
Okay, so it's embedded.
Instead, its goals and content are integrated into other areas, primarily social studies and that moral education subject we mentioned. Its focus tends to be on community involvement, political literacy, and democratic participation, distinct from the more personal and relational focus of character education and SEL.
So based on the sources, there appears to be a perceived tension, perhaps even a bit of a debate, between this top-down government push for character education and the history and goals of citizenship education, which emerged from democratic movements. It really forces the question, can you effectively teach something as complex as character or social-emotional skills as a curriculum subject? Or, as one analysis in the material suggests, are these adolescent problems, the stress, the bullying, more deeply rooted in the very high-pressure, exam-oriented environment itself? And perhaps that's where the focus needs to be.
That's exactly the tension highlighted. The sources present the argument that non-formal learning settings, perhaps like structured youth activity programs provided by local centers, might actually be more effective for developing character traits like self-esteem, sincerity, and social responsibility.
Why is that?
Well, the reasoning seems to be that these settings offer practical, experiential learning away from the academic pressure compared to trying to fit it into potentially crowded academic subjects. Plus, evaluating something like character development within a traditional curriculum structure is noted as a significant challenge.
Yeah, how do you grade that?
Right. And even in existing relevant classes like moral education, the sources point out practical difficulties. These include the potential for government influence on textbook content, the challenge of creating classes that truly encourage genuine discussion and student participation.
Right.
And the fact that teachers might not always feel adequately prepared or have the resources, especially with large class sizes.
And that brings up the powerful concept of the hidden curriculum. All the unofficial lessons students learn about values, norms, and behavior just by navigating the school environment itself, and how it can play a huge, often unintentional role in shaping their moral development.
Absolutely. It's a major factor.
Okay, let's zoom in on one specific subject area mentioned in the sources to see how national goals translate into practice: English language education.
Sure. The goals here are quite broad, reflecting that outward-looking vision, developing communication ability, fostering an understanding of foreign cultures, contributing to national culture through cross-cultural understanding, and building students' interest and confidence in English.
And the approach is tailored by level, right? In elementary school, the initial focus is very practical, developing the ability to understand and use basic English for everyday communication. It starts with spoken language, moves to simple written forms, and incorporates sounds, rhythm, intonation through commands, songs, and games.
Yeah, and there are specific vocabulary targets outlined, like aiming for around 520 words for grades 3 to 6.
Then, in secondary school, it builds on that foundation.
Correct. The goal is to develop more robust, basic communication ability, aiming for both fluency and accuracy. The sources emphasize providing diverse learning experiences using student-centered methods and trying to accommodate individual student abilities, which is a challenge in large classes.
How about?
The vocabulary goals ramp up significantly too, aiming for around 1,290 new words for grades 7-10.
And interestingly, the material notes an explicit effort to introduce students to cultures from both English-speaking and non-English-speaking countries that use English, reflecting that global perspective.
There's also a specific mention of being mindful of the linguistic differences between English and Korean in the teaching approach, which is a practical detail that can make a big difference in learning.
So, pulling all these threads together, what we see in the Korean education system, based on this material, is a remarkably complex tapestry.
It really is. It expertly weaves together deep historical traditions with ambitious national development goals, prioritizing rigorous academic achievement alongside a growing, very intentional focus on personal development and social well-being.
That national curriculum acts as the central loom, trying to balance standardization and quality across the board while also allowing for some local flexibility. And it's all driven by that ambitious, almost aspirational vision of cultivating individuals who are not just academically capable, but also creative, well-rounded, and responsible citizens ready to navigate a complex, globalized world.
But, as we've explored, implementing that multifaceted vision faces real-world challenges, particularly in a system that also generates such intense academic pressure. The ongoing debates about the most effective ways to teach character, foster social skills, and genuinely address adolescent well-being in that environment are central to its current evolution.
It's a system built with incredible detail and thoughtful objectives, constantly trying to reconcile the demands of academic competition with the goal of educating the whole person,
Yeah.
a balance that many modern societies are grappling with, really.
Absolutely. And considering South Korea's deep historical roots and its extensive, deliberate efforts to integrate character development and social skills alongside rigorous academic subjects, what does this whole picture suggest to you about the universal challenges and the fascinating possibilities of educating the whole person in any modern competitive society?